Every time we learn something new, we're building new synaptic connections. The goal here is to learn information so that we're more aware of our current state of being, or what we refer to as our current personality. If learning new information builds new synaptic connections in the brain, then if we can take this knowledge and get our intentions to match our behaviors and our thoughts to match our actions, we can say that we're embodying a new state of being. Here is a question for you. Just because you do not see something, does it mean that it does not exist? We only see less than 1% of our reality. We're mostly made up of space or frequency. 99% of our make is fields of frequency and information invisible to the human eye. This intelligence is the sole creative and governing force of matter. It gives rise to our subatomic world, which in turn translates into cells, molecules, tissues, organ systems, and finally, the organism. Did you know that your thoughts can be measured as electric fields in your brain? Did you also know that the heart produces a magnetic field that is 100 times stronger than that of the brain? This basically means that every time you're generating a thought, your body is responding to it like a magnet, and this combination creates a unique electromagnetic signature in this invisible field that is in charge of your well-being. In other words, the field is always communicating with the signals you're sending in forms of feelings and thoughts that you're embodying. The brain and the heart fields are constantly sharing information about your current state of thinking and feeling in form of signals. So if you're feeling abundant, you will naturally think happy thoughts, and the field will respond accordingly. Similarly, if you feel hopeless, more hopeless thoughts will be produced, and the field will match that state. The brain is constantly changing. Thoughts trigger real chemical and physical responses, and over time, what we repeatedly focus on becomes wired into us. There is a principle in neuroscience that says where you place your attention, you place your energy. What you consistently pay attention to gets strengthened in the brain, and your body begins to memorize those emotional states. Your focus is shaping how you think, feel, and experience life. Let me ask you a question. Where do you place most of your attention during the day? Majority of us have become slaves to our routines. Just like robots, we run errands and use up our vital resources to complete a list of tasks throughout the day, only to repeat them again the very next day all over again. We buy into the idea of being so separate that we need to compete, fight, or even hide to keep up with the pressures of the external world. This illusion of separation diverts our attention from being energy into matter. Hence, we fall into the Newtonian law of predictable universe of cause and effect. The observer does not influence what is happening. Everything is separate. People, objects, and events exist independently. Time becomes linear, past, present, and future, and change happens through physical action and external effort. Focus is primarily on the environment, the body, and time, and the external reality is what defines you. Here is a perpetual cycle of attention and energy being diverted to our outer world, leaving no room for anything else to happen. Our timeline is linear, and every moment is occupied with known elements. There is no energy left to create anything new, and even if something presented itself, it would not be convenient. Just like atoms that are bound to each other, we are energetically bound to our outer environment, and the more attention we give it, the stronger the bond becomes. Therefore, we have hardwired ourselves into being a fixed personality. The body now remembers the routine better than the mind itself. It has now become an automatic program. So if you have programmed yourself to become a personality of hopelessness, your body will remind you at all times the idea of becoming hopeless, and it will generate thoughts according to the feeling of hopelessness. And therefore, we have now conditioned our body to become the mind of that emotion through routine and repeated patterns. Let's now look at how the brain stores information. The thinking brain, the neocortex, handles conscious thought, learning, reasoning, and analysis. It's where you take in new information and start to understand concepts intellectually. The limbic brain is the emotional brain. The brain processes feelings and emotional experiences. It takes what you think about and turns it into chemical experience, which then goes into the body. So you can think of it as an emotional brain. And then you have your reptilian brain, which is focused on survival. It controls heart rate, breathing, flight, fright responses, and habits and routines that have become very automatic and unconscious. Let's look at brainwaves. We tend to oscillate between the following brainwave patterns as we navigate our environment. Beta brainwaves are associated with the outer world or state of wakefulness. High levels of beta indicate being overstressed or hyperfocused. This usually happens when we are in flight or fright. Alpha, slower, relaxed brainwaves are relaxed state, and it has a calming effect as one approaches the inner critic or the analytical mind. The theta waves are yet slower than alpha and beta, and it is the door to the inner world of imagination, pictures, and memories. Delta waves are dealing with the deep unconscious levels of awareness, as well as gamma with peak focus and heightened awareness or perception. So when we're faced with challenges in our outer environment, and especially the stressful situations around us, our brainwaves become incoherent. As we're battling against time and our flight and fright response has been activated to the reptilian brain, the two hemispheres of the brain are divided like a house against itself. The waves that were coherent now become incoherent. What was normal now becomes abnormal, and what was adaptive now becomes very maladaptive. This is okay if it is done for a short period of time under survival. However, when we keep revisiting the same thoughts over and over again, the body does not know the difference between a thought that is imagined versus a real thought, and the system becomes maladaptive. And therefore, we're constantly setting the baseline to the new state of being maladaptive. And this is where trouble begins. Let us now look at how this field influences our state of identity from the moment that we're born. So, from 0 to 2 years of age, babies are in the delta stage. They absorb everything in their environment without any filters. So basically, their emotional experiences, their sense of safety, love, and neglect all get encoded directly into the body and the brain. The body starts to learn, quote unquote, how to feel automatically. Between 2 and 6 years of age, the child is in the theta stage, or a programmable or a hypnotic stage. The analytical filter is completely absent, and the child begins to observe through repeated patterns, forming belief systems. For example, the child will say, "I'm just like my mother. I'm good for nothing. Nothing good ever happens to me. I'm always the problem." This is the birthplace for those core identity beliefs that will be formed later. Between 6 to 12 years of age, the analytical filter now is present, and the brain is in the alpha state. By now, all the subconscious belief patterns have been encoded, and they become automatic programs which control 95% of who we will become in the future. Children now begin to interpret their reality through their conditional lens. So they're not looking at things for the way they are, they're looking at it based on their conditional patterns. Emotional reactions become more consistent, and the child becomes predictable. Of course, beyond 12, the brain moves more into beta waves, especially high beta, when there is a survival mechanism there, when there is stress, when there is, a problem. The analytical mind now is fully online. By mid-30s, your personality becomes a set of memorized behaviors and attitude and emotional patterns. This means that thoughts have now become so repetitive that your emotions are going to detect your behavior, and your thoughts, therefore, will become automatic. You start feeling before you think, and now the body has become in charge of how you're going to think. So the body has become a new mind, and your thoughts will become predictive based on the emotions that you're feeling. And since emotions are on the driver's seat, you become predictable, and your future and your past experiences are continuously on repetition, and you become a predictable entity. So basically, what this means is that we are energetically bonded to everything in our external environment. That means people, places, things, and memories that connect us in form of energy to our external environment. Now, why do I say memory? Because memory is something that you can recall. Memory creates an emotion, an automatic emotion, and an automatic response in the body. And since we've said that the body has become the new mind of that emotion, constantly remembering that emotion creates the same thoughts, and we run into a loop. So this is another way of saying that we're constantly remembering our memory, and we're living in the past because our thoughts are the same thoughts that we had yesterday, and the day before, and the day before that. So unconsciously, we're living in a loop. My question is, can your thoughts create a new reality? So is there a way for us to remember our future? A future that is not dependent on our past? Theoretically, yes, this is possible. But the only way that this can be accomplished is if you're an entirely new personality. Because the old personality cannot create a new life. It's fixed in a certain way of thinking. Therefore, to become a new personality would mean to become a person that is entirely different, whose reality is entirely different. Now, how do we approach this? We can only approach this from the standpoint of our external reality. We can work backwards. Since we're so addicted to our external field, that includes people, places, and things, we can work backwards and say, okay, what from our external environment can we eliminate so that we can pull the field of energy back to us? Since it's energy that is being used for us to be bonded to the external world, we can pull the energy back to us by severing connections from the external world that no longer serve us. So certain people who create stressful environments for us, certain places that have become familiar but still create a problem for us, certain things that we're attached to, again, that gives us our sense of belonging, but in long term create damage. All this needs to be brought into our conscious awareness. I say conscious awareness carefully because we've become so unconsciously programmed that we can no longer discern between what is beneficial for us and what is not. Now, in order to overcome these elements, remember that the body has been conditioned to being a certain way because of the unconscious belief systems that we have adopted over time. In order to recondition a body to a new mind, we need to therefore tackle those old belief systems at the time when they were imprinted in our memory base. And as we've pointed out earlier, this has happened at the stage when we were much younger, when we were in a brainwave of theta, when we were at the time of infancy to the age of 12 years old, where all these unconscious belief systems were being put in. That was the birthing ground for who we were going to be in the future. And so since we already know that 90% of the thoughts are the same thoughts that we had yesterday, and that 95% of our actions are unconscious, and only 5% of our actions are conscious, thinking positively will not do much. It's not going to pass through the brainstem. It's not going to get through the heart, because your body unconsciously believes certain systems, certain patterns to be true. At the conscious level, this affirmation of you being different won't go far. What you need to do is tackle the subconscious belief patterns at the door, at the entrance where they had entered, where they were put in. And this then takes us to the theta level, the level at which we were programmed since infancy. We need to go to the door, which is available at the brainwave of theta. Once we slow the brainwaves down to that degree, then the door between the subconscious and the conscious mind is open. What do I mean by the door? The analytical filter. That filter that is your constant critic, the default mode network that is always commenting on every single thought that you're having, that inner narrator, that guy goes to sleep. When that guy goes to sleep, that is another way of saying that you have descended from beta into alpha into theta, and the door is open. The critic has gone to sleep. When the critic goes to sleep, that means you have a blank canvas. You can rewrite new programs. You can rewrite, quote unquote, a new memory. So instead of remembering the same old patterns and the same old past, what if we had an opportunity here to remember a new future? And I say remember loosely because we can only remember. Now, the body learns through trauma or surprises. If we were to encode the body in a way where we can remember a future and feel the emotions of the future way before they've happened, what you're telling your body is that there is a possibility of remembering something new, of breaking the cycle. And this then sets the tone for a new external reality to be experienced. So then what happens at this stage? So if we're in theta and we have slowed our brain waves down and the door between the conscious and the subconscious is wide open, what are we witnessing at that time? So if you look at this carefully from the work that I have done with my clients, what you start seeing are old belief patterns that come up. So it's like going into a storage room. You will see things that you've not used before. Some familiar, some unfamiliar. And this is exactly what we want to tackle. All the unfamiliar, the unconscious patterns of beliefs, right? That you know are not true, but you don't believe are not true. So as these emotions come up, as these patterns come up, you have to allow these patterns to come up at the conscious level and erase them. It's like taking something from the storage room and trashing it. You have full autonomy in doing that. Instead of being the victim to the trash that you see in the storeroom, you are now in charge of that trash and you can trash it and get rid of it. And this is the entire work. You don't need to revisit every single emotion because that may throw you in a loop of thinking and feeling and may just transgress you back into the same pattern. But what you want to do is bring these aspects to conscious awareness and delete them. And this can only happen at the subconscious level. So for example, if you have an unconscious belief pattern that you are not worthy, you are not deserving of any kind of happiness, at the level of theta, when this thought comes up, I can look at this thought and say, that's not true. I am worthy of receiving. And I can feel the sensation of the receivership ahead of time. And even though the body may make you believe otherwise, you will have dominion and you can look at it and say, I do not want to believe in this anymore. I believe I am worthy. And you start feeling the sensation of being worthy. And why does this work? Because at that point when you're in theta, you're not matter. You're more energy and less matter. And now you know that because you're energy, you're communicating with that field of intelligence that is observing how you feel. And if you want to recondition your body to a new mind, to a new personality, it is absolutely imperative that at that juncture, you don't get swayed back to the old story, that you rewrite the new story. And because you have the information now to know what you're doing and why you're doing it, the how at that particular point becomes easier. Because now you believe with conviction that all this information that you have learned, that is stored in your neocortex, that is stored in the frontal lobe, can now penetrate into the body, into the emotional center of who you are by remembering that you are worthy of receiving. You become your own savior at that time by believing in a possibility that you couldn't believe in before. Because you know that communicating with that field of energy, that loving intelligence, through the magnetic field of the heart will pull that possibility to you. And therefore, when you begin to feel abundance, way before abundance has manifested in your physical reality, when you begin to feel the emotions of love and belonging, way before the love and the belonging have manifested in a particular way in your external reality, you start setting the blueprints of a new personality, of a new person who will emerge after this experience. Energetically, this is another way of saying that you release trapped emotions from your body, right? This is what this means. That as and when each emotion is brought to a conscious level, you release it by acknowledging a different truth, a different sensation. And now you're reprogramming that body to be the mind of a new body, a body that is abundant, a body that is worthy of receiving, a body that is embodying another truth, another reality. And what happens to our timeline as we're doing this? As we're approaching these unconscious belief systems and rewriting new belief systems, what we're doing is we're shrinking our timeline. What has happened to our external reality? Our memory of who we thought we were is now shrinking because we have now severed the old patterns that connected us to our external reality. So in essence, our timeline is decreasing because our timeline was a timeline of a memory that connected us through these patterns. As we sever the bond between these patterns, between our belief systems that connected us to our external reality, as this is severed, the timeline begins to shrink. The memory of who you think you were begins to shrink. And what happens as the timeline shrinks? You get more energy, you become more energy, and you become less matter. So you want that timeline to shrink. And then as you're shrinking, as these bonds are being severed, and as your field of energy is increasing and increasing and increasing in frequency, you're now able to attract a new reality to you. Now, when does that come to completion? This comes to completion when you hit a present moment. So we've heard about people talk about the present moment all the time. But what does it mean to be present? What it means to be present is simply that you've detached from all the memories that associated you to your old past, to your old personality. And this present moment is available at every single point during your wakeful state. It is just detachment, as they said it in the Eastern traditions, or your lack of attachment to your old life, to your old thinking and feeling patterns. The more you detach from your old like personality, the new personality is a natural output. It's a natural emergence. So if you're constantly thinking elevated thoughts and you're constantly feeling abundant, you no longer need to look for it outside of yourself. You already have embodied it within yourself. That aspect of fully believing and thinking and embodying is the present moment. And in that present moment, when you're all energy, that field brings a new reality to you. So you do not need to go outside of yourself. In other words, you can now say that you've carved a new timeline that has nothing to do with your old timeline. And the personality that emerges out of that new timeline has nothing to do with the old personality. And this is why a lot of people in this work, when they have come up against their old belief patterns, when they've come up against themselves, they are their biggest enemies on this path of transformation. They're their biggest hurdles. Because overcoming your past environment, your past memories, and your past connections, once you're over that, you have carved a new timeline, you are a new person, and you have absolutely no relation to that old personality. So the illness that you were fighting was in the old personality. The new personality does not embody that anymore. The victim was in the old personality. The new personality does not understand victimhood. And therefore, you can look at the same person and you may think physically they're the same person, but emotionally and energetically they're checked out. They're living in a new reality. And that new reality may appear to be in this timeline, but they are living a different timeline entirely. And their reality now is nourishing their well-being. And they've created a better loop, a better interaction between their body, their thoughts, their emotions, and their external reality. So when we talk about this field of frequency and information, do you think it's tangible? It's not. It's not visible to the physical eyes. And this is the reason why we said earlier that just because something is not visible doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. this frequency of information and intelligence basically governs your constitution. It is what makes you up. It is what your subatomic particles within you are made up of. And that is 99.999% space. This space is not empty. The space is full of potentials. Potentials in form of probabilities of what you want to observe. And all it requires is a focused intention and a focused awareness for it to manifest. And the mode of communication is frequency and energy. So when you embody a certain frequency and a certain energy, you are unifying with this principle of this loving intelligence. In this field, there is no separation, unlike the physical world, where objects are separated through distance and it takes time to travel from one point in space to another point in space. Here, it is a unified principle. There are no matter, there is no separation, so there is nowhere to go. And because you are one with this frequency, all you need to do is observe a clear intention with an elevated emotion. And the reality will manifest itself in physical form in the way you're vibrating. So it is your state of being that is affecting matter, but your state of being from a standpoint of frequency. So there is nowhere to go. Another important thing in this field of information is that you cannot predict it. Because everything exists in probabilities, there is no way that you can predict how reality will manifest. All you can do at best at this level is emote a frequency that you want manifested. But unlike the physical world, the Newtonian way of predictability here applies only to matter. It does not apply to the field of energy. And that is the clear distinction at the subatomic level of frequency and energy. This space, this void is bubbling with potentials. And all you need to do is, just like a tuning fork, match its frequency. Just like a radio receiver signal, emote the frequency and the calibration that you want reality to manifest in. But you cannot control when and how that'll happen. Because if you do that, then you're playing right into the predictable laws of Newtonian physics. And this is what we do not want to do. Right? So this realm of frequency and information requires you to completely surrender to this intelligence, the intelligence that is keeping up your breathing right now, that is digesting the food for you right now, that is, governing the cells in your body right now. It is that same intelligence that will govern your physical reality if you let it.